podcast with a longtime friend of mine, Zoë Espinoza. Zoë, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is going to be really cool. You're like a chameleon. Like you have done so many different things. Like every time we touch base, there's something new going on. And I knew you came, about 15 years ago. I've known you almost as long as I've known Vic. I think it was 2006. You were maybe, what, 16?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I would have been like 15 or 16-ish. Yes. Yeah, probably. Yeah, 15 or 16.
Came in for guitar lessons, super into metal, and that's why they were like, oh, cool, there's the metal rock dude. We'll put you with him.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was at the school that Vic and I have just been railing on now on the podcast.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. The guy who systematically drove away both of the teachers that like I had, like you and then my vocal teacher too. Everyone left.
Here we go, folks. Confirmation. Yeah, just always up everyone's ass. And
yeah.
In fact, I want to say now, what kind of guitars do you currently have? I'm curious because I think there's a story that we mentioned involving you.
Oh, I'm sure there may have been. I have a Strat, Fender Strat. I have Epiphone Les Paul, a Jackson. I think it's called like a Dinky, which is like the worst effing name for a guitar I've ever heard in my life, but it's a really cute little guitar.
It's cute, then it's appropriate. Look at my little...
Yeah, exactly. And then I have what was it? An Ibanez acoustic, but I don't even remember the name of it, to be honest with you. I picked it up at a pawn shop for like $80, but I like it.
How current are some of these? Because I remember, I think you had the Strat maybe originally, and then you got the Les Paul.
Yeah, and that was all I had like during the duration of you and I like working together. I didn't have any of the other ones till a good few years later.
So yes, I believe it is you that came up the other night when we were talking about because we've talked about having something called the Glazer Award for, the owner of the school it just kind of tries really hard to be cool and kind of annoys everyone in the process and can be and everything. You can confirm this. But there was this time where you came in with that new Epiphone Les Paul, and it's like, wow, cool, super excited, and he goes, oh, no, cool. Oh, it's just an Epiphone.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. Like you're a paying student at the school, or like, dude,
I'm paying to be here, and like I just got this for fucking Christmas, bro. Like,
and one time,
my 17-year-old self be hype about something for like a minute, right?
And then you come in and like I remember like too, like you'd be like sitting in the lobby, have your guitar out, super excited teenager, down wanting to play.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, I taught you finger tapping, and whenever anyone learns how to finger tap as a teenager,
that's what we do for like the next month.
It's like a month at least. I was like, cool. I just won't like even try to implement anything else for the next, couple months, because like you'll just sit there like, that's cool, finger tapping through the lesson
the whole time, just quietly doing. Even if you turn down the amp, you can just still hear the guitar just quietly, just.
Oh, sorry, the amp's not working again today.
Right.
Yeah, but you're sitting there and like fiddling around in the lobby pre-lesson or whatever. It's not like it's he's just like, can you like stop, please?
Oh God, he would get so annoyed when I would just noodle around on my guitar in there. And I'm like, dude, you work in a music school. Like you're gonna hear some guitar. Like, what did you expect to happen?
Yeah. Anyway, so
goodness forbid we're enthusiastic about the music, right? You know what I remember most about him is his tyrannical dictatorship over his thermostat.
Yes, please elaborate.
Do you remember how obsessive he was about his fucking thermostat? I don't remember what the temperature was, but I remember like he was so just fanatical about making sure no one messed with the thermostat. Like even like if he was leaving for the day or whatever, he'd be like, oh, okay, Skunk, I'm checking out for the day. I left the thermostat on whatever as usual, and I'm just like, dude, you've said that like every time you've left, like we know what the thermostat needs to stay at. Like I'm a student here and I can tell you that. Like no one cares as much about your thermostat as you do.
Well, and also it's like here's the thing. I think we could have just gone and like, done whatever we wanted and then put it back. But he's the kind of guy that I think he definitely would have known and been comparing bills and being like,
oh, absolutely. That's the guy with the spreadsheets out like at the end of every month. He was just like, all right, well, this doesn't add up. 75 degrees would equal this, and 68 degrees would equal son of a bitch. Like that's that guy.
Absolute truth. We're also talking about a guy who charged we're independent contractors who we got treated like employees, but right. I mean, he charged us, the people who worked there, he charged us for water, for bottled water.
What the fuck?
Like, dude, remember, he just charged for like where I work now. It's like, oh, hey, take a guitar pick. Here, have a guitar pick. Oh, can I get you something? Oh, there's always a full water, dispenser and,
right.
The bottled jug waters, whatever. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, let me go to Randall's and get some. This is the second time I mentioned those fuckers. I don't even like Randall's, and here I am plugging the place. Grocery store and got water, and it's just like, really, like, you can't just spend like $20 so like people get thirsty and they can just have, like, they're paying to be. It's all those little things. Out
of his thermostat budget, man.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, we had to reimburse him for putting temperature to 70 degrees.
Like, crank the heat up and pass the savings on to actually nothing because you still pay for the water.
Sick, man. Yeah. No. Well,
went toward the Mustang.
Yeah. He ever made a mistake too. What would happen is, and I am not exaggerating, we would get a phone call, so we would get a voicemail, a text message, and this is speaking of the penny pinching, he would type out notes and then put them on our chairs in our rooms because we had not only that, he would actually tear the little strips of paper to save paper. I'm assuming all the notes would be ripped on small, like, so he could, I'll get like 4
cut
notes.
Cut them apart in segments.
4 notes per piece of paper, and if I calculate, so I'm making an extra, $36 a month from water. I mean, it's just like crazy. Wonder why the business
guy. It was just. I just remember one of the funniest things though about him, like, was just right off the bat, just set like, it didn't really set me off in any way. It was just like, it was weird was when he was explaining, like, okay, so yeah, you're really into like the rock and metal. Okay, so I've got this teacher who I'm gonna pair you with. His name is everyone calls him Skunk. Yeah, but don't worry, he doesn't smell or anything. And I'm like, I didn't think he did until you brought it up. Right. Like, I just assumed it was a nickname like every other nickname. Like, yeah, I didn't think so. And then you bring it up, and now I'm like, I wonder if he's going to.
And then you found out he was a total liar, and I.
Right, I'm like, oh my god, it's so bad.
Every time you came in there, you're like, please open the window.
Right, I wish I'd gone nose blind.
Well, that was another thing too. I mean, you have gone in terms of, just these, like I was saying, there's a lot of times I come back around, and I always knew this from when I met you. I was like, this guy is so cool, and you just had such a great attitude. And of course, I know your family and just very very positive, very, the kind of, I always had that sense like, man, this person can do whatever they want. They're just very like, nothing's going to hold me back. And legally blind. I'm not sure of the exact, nature of your blindness, but I mean, so I thought, I remember when you came in.
Blind. That's that's not even like just me being exaggerating. In the according to the World Health Organization's criteria for blindness, I am what is referred to as profound blindness.
Oh wow! So
which is basically just like complete blindness. Like the condition I have, it's a genetic condition that I've had since I was born. It's called LCA, or Leber's congenital amaurosis, which I think sounds great because congenital just makes it sound kind of naughty. Because it has genital in it. And, basically what it is, though, it's nowhere near as sexy as it sounds. It turns out it's just basically my retinas steadily degenerate over time. And so I had a little bit of sight, like when I was first born. But even at to give an idea, I guess, of how little sight I have, the cutoff for, like, basically when you have like 20/20 vision, 20 whatever vision, the cutoff for when they will stop measuring it with numbers is 20/800. After that point, they stop measuring it with numbers and start measuring it with, can you perceive any light or can you perceive any movement? Because at that point, numbers aren't relevant. When my vision was at its best, at the very best, at the peak of my life, which was when I was born, it was at 20/800, and it basically just degenerated from there.
Wow.
Yeah, it started off with very little and then went to pretty much nothing.
So it actually has gotten worse since we met, or
yes.
Was really?
Yeah, it's definitely gotten significantly worse since like we met each other.
Because I feel like you had sort of a sense, right? Like you could sort of
exactly.
sense something
kind of like
close.
A vague perception of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's pretty much like blanked out completely at this point. Like I think one of my eyes can see a little light if you shine a flashlight right into it, like at the doctor's. She would do that. Like the eye doctor would check, like put a flashlight in each eye or wave her hand in front of my eye. I couldn't pick up on any of the hand movement until like the only thing I can pick up on is like my left eye can see a little bit of like gray lightness whenever a flashlight's in it.
Wow, gotcha. I was going to say, because I mean, I've been teaching for like over 15 years ish now, and I've had all kinds of students in situations. So pretty much whatever, I'm like, yeah, sure. Whatever, man. I've dealt with it all. But
done everything.
When you came along, I was pretty new at it, and I was, cutting my teeth. And I remember, going back to the owner of the school being like, hey, there's this guy and he's like super new metal and da-da-da, but he's like blind. Are you okay with that? And I'm like, well, whatever, dude. I don't care.
Right. There have been a couple blind guitarists before. It could probably be done.
I'd much rather have someone who can't see and gives a shit than someone who can see and doesn't care.
Like, just doesn't want to be there, right? Like it's about the enthusiasm for doing what you do,
Totally, man. And I mean, there's still so many. I don't know how well you were there. I don't know if you were there for the duration. Were you there when the whole time I was teaching there, or did you move on?
I don't know if I was there like when you I don't know like when you started. So I don't know when I was there relative to when you started. But I was there when you were working there, and then I stuck with you when you stopped working there and were doing like lessons out of like your place.
Okay, we did that. Well, what I remember too is we did like a demo EP. We did about 4 or 5 songs.
We did like 4 or 5. I still have them. They're great.
Yeah. We've actually talked about doing something again sometime. That'd be really fun.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much.
Yeah, I'm just floating project ideas constantly because my mind's always going to like different places and ideas and one random thing or another. So yeah, I'm always thinking like, oh, it'd be really cool to get back with him and do some recording.
I'll tell you, man, there's something funny about because you don't think about it. You don't mean it to be insulting, but it's just you don't think. And like, so that when the time you were over at my house and we were recording, when you were doing vocals, I remember I kind of had you in the hall behind me.
Oh yeah.
Computer, and I get so used to doing this in recording studios and stuff. You sort of put your arm up and like you're going like, okay, like giving a signal like we're recording,
right, and
I'm sitting there and then I'm going like, what the fuck? He can't even see what I'm doing. Like I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I remember that. I think my favorite moment. There were some great moments when we were doing that demo back in 2012. One of my favorite moments though was when I was about to do a particular line, like just one line, and I don't remember even what it was, but I just remember I tried it like several times and I just couldn't get it quite right, and finally it was this last time, like, oh, I'm going to get it this time. I'm ready. I'm pumped up. Let's do it. And you're like, all right, 3, 2, 1. Before I could get a word out of my mouth, a single breath, I was breathing in. You let out the sharpest scream I've ever heard. And I'm like, what the fuck? You're like, oh my God, I just sat on my balls. What? And I'm dying laughing like so hard. The track is still going the whole time, in the background. I'm just like, I'm losing my shit. I'm like, I was so ready. I'm like, 3, 2, 1. Ah! It's like, what?
That was a studio. That was a studio producer trick where I was going like, okay, I got to distract him to get him out of his head.
Yeah, exactly. It was an oldest trick in the book.
So then you nailed the take while thinking of my balls.
Exactly. I mean, it's worked for me ever since. So I mean,
Oh, cool! More cock conversations.
Exactly. I mean, why not just bring that fully into the podcast?
We will let our listeners down if we do not discuss cock at some point.
Oh yeah, I would disappoint people if it just didn't become uncomfortable. I've recently decided if I ever write an autobiography, it's just going to be called "Pause for Uncomfortable Laughter."
I love it. Speaking, tell us about you've done some writing. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've definitely have done some writing. I've been writing for my whole life. I've always been just really enraptured with reading and writing because it was it's a great way to express yourself if you can't draw pictures or things like that, but you're very creative or you really just like creating things. So I've always been really into writing. I wrote a lot of poetry and short stories, things like that, but finally after college I decided to take some time and finally work on a book. And my novel in, actually it was while I was in college. I started it in 2012 and finished it finally in 2015. And yeah, 2012. Yeah, 2012 to 2015 was when it was. And yeah, I did that and self-published that on Amazon on Kindle, and got someone to do some artwork for it and all that. And like it was very well received. Like people really liked the book. It's not super long. It's only about like 411 pages, I think, or so. So it's like a mid-length fantasy book. But yeah, it's basically like your kind of Lord of the Rings style, Robert Howard influenced kind of like high fantasy sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the title, something Cardendale or
yeah, the Blades of Cairndale.
There you go. Yeah, because I remember you sending me some drafts and I was reading.
You did read some of that, didn't you?
Yeah. So that's on Amazon, so people can get that on Amazon if they want.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Blades of say it how you say it again.
Blades of Cairndale, and that's Cairndale. Cairndale.
Yeah, very cool, sort of fantasy type. I don't know if fantasy is the right, but like when you say Lord of the Rings, that style.
Yeah, very fantasy, very what they would call high fantasy, which is like lots of magic, lots of fantastical creatures, the kind of stuff you'd find in like a Manowar album or something like that.
Oh, there you go.
Nonfiction, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, historical basically, with the appropriate amount of high-pitched '80s vocals and body oil.
That definitely sounds like Manowar.
Oh yeah, that's basically just Manowar.
So another thing too was a writer, musician, and then you went through a phase. I'm not sure if you're still doing this, but you've got a YouTube channel that I believe is called Sightless Sensei, where you pick.
Very close. Senshi. Everyone says Sensei, but it's Senshi. Senshi.
I'll fuck up the titles of everything you do throughout this podcast.
No, that's fine. I'm totally down with that.
Okay. Well, explain the title. Explain how you got into this, because it's so fascinating. You just all of a sudden you started picking locks, and that was like
that is one of my many peculiar niche interests is lock picking. But yeah, as for the title, Sightless Senshi is kind of an interesting choice. Basically sightless, obviously, because I'm blind. Senshi is a Japanese word that means soldier or warrior, but it's actually not just going for this whole like tough guy kind of persona. What it's actually inspired by is I love like Japanese anime, and I love Sailor Moon. And in the original Japanese version of Sailor Moon, her like fellow guardians, instead of being called like Sailor Scouts or Sailor Guardians, they're called Sailor Senshi. And so like Sailor Soldiers. And, I always do I love to do costumes, like cosplay at like conventions and such. And I'll do Sailor Jupiter specifically is like my favorite character to cosplay. And so I just decided, I'm sightless and I dress up as a Sailor Senshi. So yeah, Sightless Senshi. And that's kind of where that came from. And that was my channel. I didn't really have any direction with the channel when I started it. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just, putting videos up there of stuff I would do. The first one was like that I ever did was just like working with one of like the first handgun I ever bought, which was a Ruger P89. It was just showing how to do a disassembly and reassembly, but also showing that a blind person could do it and take it down, put it back together in a little under a minute. So like pretty quick for someone who can't see what they're doing. But the channel just went in all sorts of directions. I would post music. I would post, videos of doing like video games, like playing Mortal Kombat and such. But what really started it getting a lot of traction was lockpicking, which I picked up in, I want to say 2017, if I remember correctly. Maybe, yeah, 2017 sounds about right. And it was actually my girlfriend at the time, now my partner, now my spouse. We are married. It was her idea at first. I'd always wanted to learn lockpicking ever since I was younger, and I played the old Splinter Cell video games for the PlayStation 2, and you could you pick locks and sneak around and do all this cool shit. And I always wanted to learn, but I never knew how it worked. And so she one day was like, "Hey, you want to learn lockpicking?" And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? And so I start looking into it, reading up online, researching it, all this stuff, and find out that A, it is totally legal to own lockpicks, which most people don't think it is, and B, once you understand the mechanics of a lock, that it shouldn't be that hard. And so I started lockpicking, and within like 30 minutes of starting out, when I got some picks and started trying it, I was able to pick my first lock within about 30 minutes, and then from there, I was able to start like picking the deadbolts on, my front door. Within the first night of lockpicking, I could pick like every lock on all the doors in my house. And it turns out that like I just had a knack for it. I loved lock picking. So it started this whole thing of like, I would, buy locks and I would show people these locks and like how secure they're hailed as in store. Like, oh, these are, unbeatable master lock locks, which by the way, master lock sucks. They're terrible. There's a video where a guy opens one with a chopstick from his Chinese takeout. They're grotesquely bad. And like, yeah, master lock is just, they're awful. But I would get these locks and I would show people, hey, this is how you can pick these locks. It's super cool. And then I started getting into this whole community. It turns out there are these people, they do what they call lock sport, which is recreational lock picking. And we would like make packages of locks and send them to each other, and like it's people from all over the world sending each other all these different locks. So I would get locks from countries that wouldn't even be sold here, like some lock from Australia or Germany or something. But what got really fun is you start doing competitive locks where you actually start making your own. You actually, you get a drill and you take out the core of the lock and you actually take out the pins, and you cut the pins using like a Dremel tool and like make them with different serrations on them, or like cut them to different heights and cut keys that match them, because the rules are basically you have to have a lock that can be opened with a key so that it can confirm that it works. But beyond that, you can do just basically whatever you want to the inside of it, to the pins, to the springs, etc., to just make it as complicated as possible. And then what you do is you send it in a package to another lock picker. He starts up a YouTube video, unboxes the lock and picks it, and then disassembles it all on camera without taking it off screen, to show basically like in good faith that like, hey, I didn't mess with the lock and I was able to pick it, and then also to show off all the hard work of putting all the pins in and whatnot. And that just became a really big hobby for me, was picking apart all of these locks and making locks and things like that. It ended up being like something I became like super passionate about.
Well, I have two things to say. One, I hope that more people do not have a knack for that like you.
Right.
And two, we're going to take a quick pause to thank our sponsor, Master Lock, at this time. So.
Master Lock, for when you want your shit to get really
Randall's and Master Lock, they suck. Who wants to buy advertising on our podcast?
A Master Lock on your stuff, you might as well just like put one of the. As far as security goes, I'd feel more safe putting one of those little twisty ties from like the HEB bags of bread on it. Like that'll secure it better than a master lock, because at least that'll take someone a couple minutes to figure out which way to untwist it.
To be honest, I have about as much trouble with those contraptions too. So
yeah, exactly. So there you go. It's legit. It's totally a valid strat. But yeah, I mean, they just charge so much for these just abysmally bad locks, and then like. It's like, oh, this is $30, but it's weather resistant and sledgehammer resistant and all this stuff. And then I'm picking it while I'm in the line about to check out at Home Depot, and I haven't even rung it up yet, and I've already picked it open.
Jeez. I want to come back to something you said, but kind of segueing into that when you were talking about disassembling guns, was ROTC or something?
Yeah. I was in ROTC in high school, in the Marine Corps ROTC. I guess it was high school, so it was the JROTC, the junior version of that, since ROTC is college level. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was in the high school ROTC basically for Marine Corps for my full high school career, and I loved it. It was a great experience. I got to do. At first, they didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. They didn't want me to get in there because they're like, oh, what if he gets hurt? What if something bad happens? And, my mom, who was a teacher at the high school where I went also, she told him, she's like, look, just let him try. If he fails, he fails. And, you can kick him out. We're not going to sue you. If he falls or something, we're not that kind of people. It's fine. And, turns out I totally took to it, whether it was like marksmanship or rappelling from towers or, things like that. I really gravitated to all of the activities we did in ROTC.
That's amazing. Victor,
I have a lot of fun trying stuff, especially when it's something that someone either says I can't do or questions whether or not it would be possible for me to do it. My immediate desire is to then do that thing. I have this strong urge to just surpass expectations.
That's awesome.
I bet you can't clean my house.
Okay, you're probably right on that one. I gotta concede there are limits to what a blind person can do.
I bet you can't buy me a new car. I dare you. Vic, were you ROTC before the actual Marine Corps? Or?
No. Yeah, we didn't have that in my school, but no, I just went straight in.
Oh, hey, good for you.
Yeah. So, so what's really fascinating, you mentioned marksmanship. Like how does that work out?
So yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people wonder about that. With handguns, it's a little bit easier because I can basically I can do what was called point shooting, which was actually invented during World War II, which is basically where you actually pull the trigger of the pistol with your middle finger while your index finger is pointed
Yes.
and resting along the edge of the weapon. And it's pointed at whatever you want to shoot. And it was designed in World War II because they were drafting people to fight faster than they could train them, and they just needed, a way to expedite that process. And point shooting was developed because it was conceived that if someone can point at something, they can shoot at it.
Right.
So that was why that was developed. So with handguns, that's what I do. With rifles, it just takes a little bit more care. But for either one, what I do with regard to like getting on target in the first place is I'll partner with someone who can see. So like whether it's my spouse or whether it's when I go hunting with my dad, it'll be him, and he'll just he'd stand behind me and like peer over my shoulder looking through the scope, and then I'll do all the necessary movement related adjustments and firing and all that good stuff. And holding the weapon and all that fun stuff. But basically I just have a sighted spotter.
So as long as you're not paired with Dick Cheney, you should be good.
Yeah, basically as long as he's not spotting for me. And I mean, even then, if we're hunting, like depending on what we're hunting, he might be great at it. As long as it's people who apparently resemble quail in the spur of the moment. You sound a lot like a quail to me, boy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm familiar with point shooting with a rifle.
I went hunting. What was it? Last February. It was my first time hunting. Actually, it was last year in February. Went feral hog hunting, and I got one at about I think it was 75 yards out. It was a nice clean one shot through the lungs, and put that thing down. And I had sausage for months.
I was going to ask. Wow, cool, man.
So I still have some of that sausage.
Man, that is awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love shooting. I love I do martial arts. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Actually, the first time I trained in jiu-jitsu, I started when I was 13 and trained up through college. But my instructor was actually here in Austin, a guy named William Vandry, and he is actually totally blind. He's a black belt and world champion jiu-jitsu fighter.
Wow. In terms of being sightless in martial arts, jiu-jitsu seems appropriate because you're grappling, you're on the ground, you're sort of, you're manipulating things without sight anyway.
Exactly. You're always in contact with the other person's body, like even whether you're being aggressive or defensive versus like other martial arts where, you want to be blocking or putting distance between you and your opponent. With jiu-jitsu, whether you're on the offense or defense, you want to be close to your opponent and attached to them in some way. So like with, just kind of basic spatial awareness, just as long as I've got one point of contact on somebody, I can generally figure out what the rest of their body is doing, like based on, their movement and such.
Yeah. Do you remember my dog, Hoist?
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you into UFC as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why I love the name. I thought that was awesome. Hoist Gracie.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy we had a few weeks back, Yuri from Brazil, was he trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. Yeah. And a big Maiden fan. I imagine you're probably into Maiden.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Metal. You're into lots of different music.
Very much so. Hell, Maiden was the band that got me into metal. Like I was playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, and I heard Number of the Beast for the first time, and I'd never heard metal before. I had no idea what this music was, but I just heard, just the starting the guitar, and then the, just the kind of the more chill vocals at the beginning. The I left alone, my mind was blank, whatever, all that stuff. I'm like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. This is pretty cool. And then, the drums hit the and Bruce Dickinson just does the air raid siren style scream that's like, yeah! And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is awesome. I was like,
and hooked.
Music is, but it's angry and pretty at the same time, and I love it.
Back to us recording, you did those kind of vocal stylings, but before we did that demo, I think it was in maybe 2008 or 9.
Yeah, I
think it was all the way back in 8 when Good Rogering first formed, and we went in the studio, and what we ended up sort of like going in the studio with the idea of doing a demo, and then me and being, I don't know why I got this hair up my ass to just ended up putting it out as our first EP, and I just sort of went back in and kept, messing with it and layering things and stuff like that. But the initial 6 songs were just tracked live, and you were one of the people that came in to do some vocals specifically because we wanted some very metal, death metal vocals, and we actually had these titles when we were giving you the direction in the vocal booth to be like, okay, give us the demonic frog, give us
do the demonic frog, and I'm in there just.
Yeah, we had a couple of different pig squeals, demonic.
Yeah, the nice big pig squeals, the grindcore, like, and then like the like fucking metal, just gremlin, goblin, like growl, like kind of black metal shit,
Yeah, so there's a few good Rogering songs on that first EP that have you on there. I literally cited you in the credits with pig squeals and demonic frog noises or something along metal grunts and stuff like that. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
What are you into?
That was a good time. That was just fucking really fun.
It was good stuff. Are anything new? Any new bands you've discovered? Any thing?
I'm listening to so much stuff lately. Like I love music. That's something we can very much relate on. I love music. I love listening to new stuff. I've been listening to, as far as metal specifically, someone turned me on to this band called Beast in Black that I'm absolutely in love with. They're just like, everything they do is catchy. It's like, someone described it recently. I shared a song with them and they're like, it kind of sounds like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest are like singing a duet while somebody plays 80s synth pop under it. And I don't know how that works, but it does. Like, I don't know how that comes together sounding good, but it does. But like, yeah, beyond metal, I listen to a pretty good variety of stuff, whether it's metal, whether it's I like Tejano or Norduno music. I'm teaching myself the accordion for fun because I got bored and it's cool. And then like outside of metal, my biggest like musical passion that isn't metal, that always just throws people for a loop unless they've spent more than like 5 minutes around me and then they totally get it, is I love pop singer Carly Rae Jepsen.
Yes, I'm aware.
Yes, she is like my favorite human being ever. I have met her twice. I have so many signed things from her. She picked out a song for my wedding. Like, she is the coolest person ever. I'm probably uncomfortably obsessed with her and know like way more trivia about her than I should.
She's constantly changing her locks. She's like,
oh yeah.
There's no way I'm putting a fucking master lock on my door.
There you go.
Like, whatever we lock the tour bus with, it better not be a master lock, because there's that guy who knows my shoe size again.
Throw those goddamn chopsticks away.
Right? Exactly. You gotta get in here. I often just joke with my wife that like the only reason I really love her is because she has the same shoe size as Carly Rae Jepsen. Yeah, it's true though.
So all the truths are coming out. How long have you been married, man?
I got married on October 13th of last year.
Okay, well, congrats on that. I'm sure we've communicated, through Messenger and stuff, but we haven't really quote unquote seen each other in quite a while.
Yeah, we haven't really like talked out of like a person to person, or as close as we can get like with COVID right now. But like, yeah, I mean, you haven't really like had an extensive chat in a while.
Yeah, you've been working for Apple now for a few years, or?
Yes. I work for them as a senior technical advisor. I'm actually like the first blind person in the company to be promoted to that role.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have other blind advisors. I was definitely not the first of those. But when they finally decided they wanted to open up, higher up roles to blind folks, I was their first selection for senior advisor. And so, yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been doing that since July of last year. I've been working with Apple for about 2 years and change now. Like, it'll be 3 years in January of this coming year. So, yeah, like 2.5 years, give or take. And I've been a senior advisor since July of last year.
Right on.
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny because recently, maybe before we had talked about you coming on the podcast, but I had. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was that same conversation pretty recent when we chatted, like, I had mentioned, I just got a new a computer and this and that, and then you were like, "Oh yeah, I work at." I was like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
Apple, I should hit you up right away.
Exactly. Yeah. We always tell people too, like, because my partner, she works at Apple as well, and so like we always tell people, friends and family, we're like, dude, hit us up. We have a discount. Like, they don't make us keep it a secret. Like, they're very open about telling us we have a friends and family discount. Like, tell your friends, tell your family, use it. Own it, embrace it, love it, whatever, share it. And we tell everyone, and then people talk to them like, "Hey, I just bought a new iPhone. I should have reached out to you, shouldn't I?" I'm like, yes, you should have.
Idiot.
Right? I'm like, all right, you enjoy the extra 20% or 15% you paid for it. That's fine by me.
See, I mean, just even in the half hour or whatever we've been talking, I mean, it's so amazing and fascinating just how much you've been involved in, and you're still, relatively young. You're 20 something, right? I mean,
29.
29. Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, we were saying this on our first podcast, and Vic and I were kind of talking and just introducing ourselves and saying how we met, or not long before I met you. And I'm going like, my God, man, when I've got students that are as old or older than I was when I moved here and started teaching, and it's so crazy that we're teenagers. Yeah. Yeah,
like even just being like 29, like it's not that old. It's just older than like a teenager, older than your early 20s, whatever. It's not like full on old or anything like that. Not even middle aged, whatever. But like you still like I still just get this weird sense of like just looking back at things that have happened and realizing, wow, that was 8 years ago. That was 12 years ago, something like that. It's weird to see how much time has gone by.
I don't know if this is just how it is in life in general, or what. I think we live in this technological age too, where everything is so accelerated all the time with everything.
It really feels that way.
I remember the other day, and it's like, oh wait, that was fucking 2010. It's really
right. Yeah, I think back to like, I mean, exactly like that. Like I think back to things like just little, things like going hunting, and I'm like, oh wow, I thought that it feels like that was just a few months ago. No, that was last year. Or like, oh, I went skydiving, and it's like that was 3 years ago. And then like just other even just random things like, oh, I met this friend just a couple of years ago. I'm like, whoa, wait, no, that was 2009. Or like my best friend, I'm like, oh, we've been friends since 4th grade, so that's been like 20 years now. It's 20 years that I've known.
I say things like that too, and I'm thinking of times past. I'm like, oh, like 15 years, and they're like, no, dude, like 30.
Yeah.
I remember
try again.
Guitar for 8 years. I've been playing guitar for 15. People, how long have you been playing guitar? I'm like, fucking, I don't know, dude. Like 20 something, 30, a long time.
Long enough that I fucking forgot. That's how long.
That's how long. Yeah. I was probably better 10 years ago or 20 years. I mean, that's the thing is you get really, I think when you're young too, and when you get in things, you're really in it. And I used to play, now it's like my career in multiple ways, but I used to play just all the time, and just, it was, now it's like, oh man, you must, and I'm like, I haven't fucking touched my guitar in weeks, unless.
Right? No, I totally get that. Like I remember when I was taking lessons, or even when I was in college and not taking lessons anymore. But like I would just pick up the guitar, and I would it'd be like 3 PM. I'd start playing and just playing and playing, and be like, oh man, how much time has passed? And it's like, oh, it's like 7 o'clock. I need to go take a shit or something, like I actually need to get up and move. But then it's like, nowadays I'm like, when was the last time I picked up that guitar? I need to dust that thing off,
Time to finger tap, buddy.
Exactly. Yeah. Time to get back into some tapping, do some good old fashioned Van Halen, Just not nearly as coordinated or good, but something like that.
But less drunk, at least, hopefully.
Maybe
more.
No promises.
Just don't touch the thermostat.
Yeah, the goddamn thermostat.
Mike,
didn't he? I think he broke in one of our lessons, and he was asking you, "Hey, did you leave the windows open or something crazy like that?"
No, it's Keenan's story.
Was it Keenan?
We've mentioned Keenan on this podcast. Like Keenan was one of the guys that worked there, and great guitar player that toured around with multiple acts and this and that. And I haven't talked to him in years, so I'm not sure what he's got going on. I think he's probably got a family and everything, but he, I think it was him one time that. Then he kind of had that way, like I'm real excitable, obviously, and I'm, start going off on something. He was like him and like my brother and certain people. They have that real sort of like chill demeanor about them, and it almost makes it funnier when they're telling you something ridiculous, And
right.
But I remember, I'm pretty sure it was him. He was just like the way he was talking about it too. He's like, he walks in his room and he's just like, oh hey man, it's like a nice day, like Phil, you should open the window or whatever. And then literally later he comes back and he's like, oh, hey, you might want to close the window because the AC's on. It's like, okay.
If you say so, man. Like,
Oh man.
okay. What the hell? That guy had some micromanagement issues.
Severe micromanagement. Several instructors, quit, and then of course it was always their fault. But I mean,
oh yeah, it was never. It's weird how like the common denominator never thinks it's their fault. It's like exactly. It's like, hey, all of these people don't like working for me. What's all of their problem?
Yep. And so
that's how students, would always be like, I was telling you, my parents are, my mom's a teacher. She was. My dad was a principal. And, I did for a while, I was working as an English tutor. And I noticed this. So, we've all had background in education. And I noticed this, that students were there, not all students, I mean, but like the kind of student who was like this, was just like, oh, all of my teachers hate me. And I'm like, wow. All of them, all of the different people with different backgrounds and different preferences all came together to hate you. I wonder if there's like one possible common denominator here.
It's true. It's like, it's kind of what I was saying about you right off the bat about just, I think, when I met you and you had this sort of like gleaming attitude and like you said, there's like a desire to be like, well, bullshit, I can do that. But
exactly.
I always felt just like a very positive attitude, and I think maybe props to your family and your parents on that. You guys were always so positive. And it was very, being around that, that's very cool energy to be around. You like being
absolutely. It's really like encouraging.
Of course. And on the flip side of that, it's like there's those people and it's just negative. Everything's negative. Everything is, not to say that I haven't been guilty of this, but it's so
everyone has at some point or another.
Right. But it's such a universal truth. You got the person that's complaining about everything. Everything's negative. Everything's terrible, this and that. And then everyone's against them and they don't understand how it's like, dude, you're fucking. It's you.
It's you. You're at the eye of the storm. You're the apex of this thing. Exactly. That is happening. You're the magnet, like the metal shavings that are the problems you're dealing with are being drawn to you because you are the magnet.
Like Victor, just putting out this negative energy right now.
Just sucking the life out of the fucking room, man. Hugh just 20 minutes of playing into this guy I don't even know.
I'll try to be more aggressive.
So to enlighten you onto our attire, I specifically wore a quarter shackle shirt because I was like, I've known you that long. I've known you since the quarter shackle that kind of coincided with me starting to work to teach at that school. Yep. Seeing Victor here wearing a Clutch shirt, which I have that exact same Clutch shirt.
Oh,
are you a Clutch? Do you know the band Clutch?
Oh hell yeah! I love Clutch.
That's the correct answer. You passed the test. Ask everyone that question and they're like, nah. I'm like, oh, well, you're having technical difficulties.
We can't hear you. You're breaking up.
End of podcast.
Really, what's really funny about Clutch is I've always, I've liked them. They're really cool, and I've also really enjoyed. I believe this band. They're from Denmark, Volbeat. And sure. I always liked the way they sounded, and I was like, it'd be really cool. Is like it sounds like they would like work really well together with Clutch. I'd love to see them like tour together or do something like that. And then the Volbeat's latest album, one of their songs is like a duet between their lead singer and the lead singer from Clutch.
No way.
Yeah. And I'm like, holy shit, I fucking nailed it. I knew these guys would work well together.
Yeah, I think Neil Fallon actually did that too at didn't he sing a song with Mastodon on that last tour? And we had talked about it a little bit, Vic. I feel like, or maybe it was Pepper from COC. Somebody came out and sang with someone else.
Might have been Pepper. Maybe.
Yeah. I thought Neil Fallon did something, or maybe they came out and sang with Clutch. I don't know. Blah blah. Who cares?
Something like that.
Yeah. I had a joke though about, well, not a joke, a true story, which is really funny because back to Volbeat, like honestly, Volbeat, I don't know a whole lot about him, and I've heard some stuff from like, oh yeah, I'm kind of indifferent, but it's not bad, and like I definitely think it's like, oh, it's kind of like a cool like Metallica. It's like it's good,
Yeah.
But when we Vic, you and I saw them open for Megadeth, am I right? Am I thinking of the right band?
That's right, because it was Lacuna Coil, and then it was Volbeat,
I've seen them live.
And then it was Megadeth, and the girl from Lacuna Coil came out and did the duet with Dave Mustaine on.
What is that song called?
It's in French. Whatever it was called.
Her name is Christina Scabia, by the way.
The Italian
what size
girl.
shoe does she wear?
I'm not interested enough to know.
I bet he could find out.
I bet I could find out. I've got websites.
Sizes on fuck her. Not interested.
She uses master locks.
Right? Yeah, no, Lacuna Coil, I actually saw them live at one of my, that was like one of the first concerts I went to. They were one of the opening bands for.
I don't recall. Like, I don't know if I got there later. We went together, but for some reason, I think I missed them, or I just don't remember the performance.
I got there, and I think they were on their last song, and then Volbeat came out. Volbeat actually, they have. I know his first name is Rob, and I don't remember what his last name is, but he was the guitar player with Anthrax. One of Anthrax. Yeah, guitar players.
I remember us making fun of them because there was someone in that band that played. Maybe it was the same guy that also played with was it Killing Joke or King Diamond or one of the Merciful Fate or one of those bands. Maybe King Diamond, I think. I could be way off base here, but we were making fun of one of those guys the way we used to make fun of that leather pants guy at Dirty Dog. Remember that? Speaking of Dirty Dog, shout out! I heard apparently they're the latest casualty of this whole pandemic in terms of bars.
Yeah, I fucking heard that.
That's unfortunate to hear.
That fucking sucks. I love that place.
They're hoping to relocate.
Memories times. Oh, really? Just got to get off of 6th Street. Yeah, 6th Street.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to renew the lease on 6th Street, but I mean, that place is kind of trashy anyway now.
Yeah, it's gone. It's really gone.
Yeah, fuck that place. I love Dirty Dog, but that was like the only reason to go there. That and Death Metal Pizza.
Kind of so many people have shifted to come and take it live, which I have nothing but good things to say about that venue over on East Side. And speaking of which, you need to come out to Skunk Fest if it ever happens again.
Hell yeah.
Get you back on stage, come hang out. Like, I've been wanting to do that forever. I know there's like
I'd totally be into that.
But yeah, Dirty Dog, it got to the point where I've actually had moments where you're fucking trapped downtown. You can't get out of there because there's just this cesspool of loitering shitbags that come out for hours and fucking just do nothing but just get in the way and act like assholes, and all these drunk fuckers running around. Yep. And so I mean, I've been down there where I've just been sitting there in my car like, well, I can't fucking move. And then one time a bunch of assholes are in front of me. I honk my horn and I get attacked, man. I hear some of this stuff about people getting, assaulted in their vehicles. And I'm like, I can relate in the sense that I'm like, well, that fucking happened to me. It's fucked up and scary. Like, I don't blame some.
I bet. Yeah. That would scare the hell out of me.
These motherfuckers were jumping on my hood and beating on my windows. All I was a dude that played a gig and wanted to get fucking home and go to bed at 3 a.m.
Like, you're fucking tired and you just want to drive home on like a Saturday or whatever. And these fucking drunk assholes with nowhere to be.
Fucking asshole. Anyway, but
I hate that shit.
What's that? I'll tell you what, I don't miss that shit, and I don't miss fucking loading in through that piss-filled alley behind the fucking Jesus. Dirty. I was always trying to be like, oh god, I don't want any of my gear to fucking touch the fucking.
Don't touch anything.
No, don't put it there. It's like urine.
Like flying operations. Don't touch the signs.
Maybe that's why that dude wore leather pants.
Yeah, so the leather pants guy. Oh, but we kind of went off on the Dirty Dog.
Yeah.
Pants guy. There was some. It was, I don't even know what in my mind, the name of the band had to be Leather or something, but he had these leather and he was just owning it, man. Weren't they like red leather pants too or something?
Red leather pants. He was standing on his amp and he wasn't wearing a shirt and he had like a leather duster on.
Oh my God.
He was a bass player.
Yeah, this is a good one for man. But for some reason, we just ragged on this one dude from Volbeat. I don't know who he was, but he did something that we would just like caught. It's like sometimes someone will do something, you'll just latch onto it.
Right.
He did some spin move or something. Like he did something glammy, and Vic and I are just like,
we just made up, dude.
Like, yeah, he got in the fucking. He just got put in the douche bag.
That's hilarious.
Leather pants category.
Amazing management, because they've toured with all the Titans. I mean, Megadeth, Metallica. They've toured with. They're huge, man, and they've gotten on all these great tours. So I don't know, they're with fucking some great manage. Whatever they're doing it right, and they got.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to check some.
Yeah, I recommend Volbeat's newer stuff. Honestly, like their older stuff is fine, but I think they really like the last 2 albums they did. Really solidified like the sound they were kind of going for, like what they were kind of all about. And like when it came down to it, like when they really kind of I don't know, I feel like it really just solidified what they were going for. I think it just really made just a sharper, better sound. It's really groovy. It's really got some just really cool guitar parts, some really cool progressions. I think you'd totally dig.
Sure, yeah, I need to check that out. Send me a link or something if you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll totally do that after this.
Yeah, that song with Neil Fallon's pretty good. I'll listen to that.
Oh fuck yes.
Yeah, that's
a great song.
I think sometimes these bands, like I think of Mastodon when I think of that. And actually, oddly enough, AGR has been, a lot of people have said like, oh, you guys kind of have you remind me of Mastodon. I was like, oh, really? Like, I don't really listen to a lot of Mastodon. I got a couple of their earlier albums, and I remember seeing them live when, 2009 or something. And, yeah, they're cool. They're great. But nothing was like super hooky. And not that I don't like stuff or whatever, but like, I just think like then their drummers started singing in some of their newer albums. They sometimes these bands, and then people, oh, you sell out or whatever. I'm like, well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a good fucking song with a good hook and a good melody. That's one thing I love so much. Megadeth, like Megadeth is a quote metal band. They've laid out some like crazy good, the landmark metal albums like Rust. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot who I was. Holy shit! Okay,
I was waiting this whole time.
No idea.
It was gonna take you to remember.
This is going to get so good. Okay. Anyway, before we go there, but Megadeth, landmark, you can't deny whether you like it or not. Rust in Peace, landmark metal album, just like Mastodon.
Influential landmark metal album. Whether I can't stand the fucking sound of his fucking shit ass voice or not, the album is good.
Like they got kind of poppy, and like people can say like it's still rock and metal, but they got like there's nothing wrong with great melodies and hooks, and I think Megadeth done that. Metallica's done that. I think Megadeth even more, but in the 90s, I think all their albums are brilliant, because I love shit singers. But there's no accounting for taste, but I mean, it's whatever. I think a few years had this fun sort of give each other shit little rivalry in lessons because you love Rush. Now, nothing against Rush, and the reason I think this is so funny is because literally on the last podcast we had, the whole last part of it had to do with Geddy Lee, and it was just absurd, it just ridiculous. But anyway,
fine.
I have some funny stories about Geddy Lee that brings to mind. I don't know if you ever listened to back when he was on the radio on 93.7 in Austin, Charlie Hodge. He would do this whole thing about how much he fucking hated Rush and Geddy Lee specifically.
Goats and the lasers.
Yeah, the goat thing. Yeah. Where he would like make he'd be like, oh, we have a new Rush track, and he's playing this drum machine. And he's like, there's some synthesizers from Geddy Lee and just these little like laser sounds. Like, oh, and here come those Geddy Lee vocals. It's just. And so then, the next day he's like, well, I got so many calls from angry Rush fans about that I decided to apologize to you guys, and that was not appropriate, but, it wasn't cool, and I just want to apologize. And to make it up to you guys, I actually reached out to Geddy Lee, and I have him on the phone on the other line here, and we're going to do an in-studio interview just to make it up with you guys. So, Geddy, why don't you tell me about the new album?
Brilliant. But Charlie Hodge was great, man. I wish he was still on KLBJ.
I miss that guy so much.
Yeah, he was so good. That was like the one show I used to really enjoy listening to, like in traffic.
Every day, if I could, I'd listen to his show. It was just, it was like the thing worth listening to the radio for.
So with, I think he did the same thing with Stevie Nicks. I think he had the goat thing with her as well.
Yeah.
Which fucked.
Yeah, we used to always give each other so much shit about Megadeth and Rush.
So yeah, I gave you shit about
Rush.
You gave me shit about Megadeth mainly because you couldn't stand Dave Mustaine's voice, and I never, Geddy Lee. I mean, to his credit, it's very unique and they're no one can. They're amazing musicians, and I finally came around. I was like, well, I saw them live. I'm glad I did. They're amazing. I mean, you can't say something bad about a band that iconic and amazing. They've earned it. They're amazing. But what's weird to me is they are, I think, kind of an interesting anomaly. I would almost venture to say maybe the in terms of like prog rock and like super progressive music, they are so fucking famous. They have so many diehard fans, and I don't know what it is about them. They're so different, and his voice is so different and unique. And they have this massive, massive following. They're very
it's strange, isn't it? Because you get other bands that do some really unique sounding stuff too, like some really interesting, stuff and some perfectly good stuff, and they enjoy, success. Like, bands like prog metal kind of groups like Dream Theater. They have a huge following, but like huge relative to a lot of other metal bands, lesser known metal bands. But when you compare even them to someone like Rush, who arguably sounds even less accessible to the average audience because of maybe the weird instrumentation choices and the weird, admittedly very distinctive vocals. It's like somehow their audience eclipses that of bands like Dream Theater, even though Dream Theater is arguably much more radio friendly probably. But it's weird how Rush has just enjoyed this just massive amount of success and fame for being a very kind of offbeat sounding band.
Have you ever seen them live, either of you?
I never did. No, I really wanted to, but I sadly never got the chance. They were one of my few concert regrets of never getting to go see them and Dio.
Oh yeah, Dio, man. I'm so glad I got to see Dio.
I never did. Really wanted to, never fucking did, and I'm still bitter about that.
Right, rightfully so. I know there's
Right?
those certain bands I never got to see, and I'm like, fuck anyone who saw that band.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Just like, God damn it, I hate everyone. Well, the thing with for Rush for me though was because like I was really bitter because they came to like my high school, or they came to my town, and my high school friend of mine, they came to not my town, I guess they came to Austin, not to my little shitty hometown, but they came to Austin, and my friend from high school, one of my really, really good friends we were seniors in high school, and she was going to go see them. And she's like, yeah, I bought 2 tickets to go see Rush. And I'm like, oh, wow, you're really cool. You're going to go see them. I'm like, quietly in my head, I'm like, oh my God, you bought 2 tickets to see Rush. And she knows that I'm a diehard Rush fan because I'm listening to Rush every day because all the time. And I fucking love them. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to go see them. And I've got this extra ticket. So I'm going to take, and she drops the name of like some fucking dude who like she just met that year. And we like known each other since like, she and I have known each other since like 4th grade also, and like just goes with this guy who she's like not even friends with anymore. And I'm just like, I remember that whole night that I knew the concert was going on, I'm just sitting at home like listening to a live Rush album, just fucking fuming. I'm just like, my little teen angst is just like so, enraged. And of course, she and I are still like great friends, and it's just a funny story to look back on now, but like at the time I was like, God damn it, you son of a bitch.
I'm gonna fucking pitch it.
I'm gonna never forgive you.
I'm gonna pick this bitch's lock and
steal all of our fucking lock and steal all your Rush memorabilia. Replace it with shitty Megadeth crap.
As long as it's rest in peace.
What did you ever see them, Vic?
Rush?
Were you that last tour here?
No, I missed that one. I wanted to go see it, but I think I had a work trip or something. But
now, to my credit, I have seen Megadeth live.
And
pass.
When I've seen.
I was waiting for Slayer. I was waiting for Slayer, so I was kind of bored. But like, Anthrax went on. It was awesome. Then it was like there was like this fucking hour-long intermission of noise, and then Slayer.
Ridiculous. That's absurd. Calling Megadeth noise, and then look, no discount to Slayer. They're amazing. I finally saw them too, and the fire and the all the chains and the
fucking yes, exactly.
Sparks. But like, I'm like, look, but Megadeth is like great, man. They have great songs, great melodies. I get the Dave Mustaine thing; he can be obnoxious, and
their guitar work is fucking amazing. Like I love, honestly, their guitar work is absolutely delightful, and I love what's his name, and he does like solo albums well. Marty Friedman.
Yeah, absolutely.
I fucking love his work too. Their guitar is absolutely great. Like I cannot. It's one of those things where you can't argue. Like whether I like the sound of the vocals or not, the guitar is talented.
Yeah, it's like Rush. If you don't like something, it's like with Rush, I would never go Rush sucks. I mean, it might just be like it doesn't really it's not my cup of tea, but I can acknowledge that like they're amazing.
Exactly, it's like they're talented and they are very good at what they do. And like this is the same for Megadeth. It's like they're clearly like they have a goal in mind for what the kind of songs they want to produce, the quality of music they're after, like what they want to do with with their instruments, with their vocals, whatever, and they achieve that phenomenally well. It just so happens that the result of what they achieve is not something that my ears enjoy very much. But objectively, the work itself is masterful.
Right. We're just gonna chop this up to where you're going, and the work itself is masterful. I love Megadeth.
Megadeth is amazing.
Great guitar.
I love the sound of Dave Mustaine's cock.
Yes. So the
I really have to chop that up since I literally just said it. So I mean that's just a sound bite right there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making it real easy for us.
Yeah, no worries. Anything else incriminating I need to say while I'm here? Make a soundboard. You can just play it during all the other podcasts. Just click a little button and just have me say something uncomfortable.
To me, Dave Mustaine is like Ozzy in that regard, in terms of just really having a knack for picking fantastic musicians and always have.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
There's like always just phenomenal players. So whether you
surrounded with just some of the most like skillful artists that they can like just get into their group. Right.
This is why you want to suck his cock. He's amazing.
Hell yeah. I mean, who wouldn't?
Right. Whose cock do you want to suck, Vic?
Well, I have to think about that one.
Put him on the spot there.
Yeah.
You gotta narrow down the list, man. It's gonna take some time.
Dude, you can't just give me one cock to suck and like expect me to answer on the spot. I gotta think about
Everyone deserves like more than you can't just like narrow all of life down to one cock. Like it's just
don't limit
life
choices.
is an all you can suck buffet, and it's not fair to just give a one cock limit.
Cock for the rest of my life. Whose cock's it gonna be?
Right, exactly. If I'm gonna be stuck with one cock, I'm gonna be really fucking careful about whose I pick.
Fair. I mean, for both of us, like, I wouldn't want it to be, suddenly I'm talking about how sucking cock, but I wouldn't want it to be Dave Mustaine or Geddy Lee because I don't want to hear the noise either of those guys makes during climax.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that right now, and I'm just thinking of like Geddy Lee just sounding like some kind of like goat in heat, and it's just it's pretty unsettling. I always imagine that Eric Adams from Manowar does like his metal scream whenever he comes. Like I've always assumed that's what he does.
Speaking of Manowar, wasn't there something pretty? Didn't someone get in trouble with some?
Oh yeah. No, it was really bad. A couple years ago. I mean, they've gone through a ton of guitarists in their day.
So it wasn't bigger. It wasn't like the main dude.
No. It was the guitarist for like the two most recent albums.
Okay.
Yeah, Carl Logan, he got busted with like child pornography and some shit, and I mean, the band immediately like cut him from like their current tour and had him replaced with somebody else, and I mean, they handled. I think the band handled it well, but that dude's a piece of shit.
Yeah, that's terribly unfortunate because you never know. I think for most people, are decent people, but we all have issues and monsters inside of us, but some way more than others. And
exactly, you never know like the depth of what someone's problems are.
Just for a reason, it's like you should never cross those lines, and then it just sucks for anyone who everything's going great, you don't know any better, and all of a sudden you find out a guy in your fucking band is into child pornography. Like, what a disaster, man. That's horrible. It's like,
holy shit, like you knew this guy, you worked with this guy, and like his name and his fucked upness is now like associated with like you and your work now, like, right. I mean, obviously that's to say nothing of the already very like problematic nature of like, he was into fucked up shit. Like that's obviously on its own, that's already fucking terrible. But just even more so the fact just even piling onto that, the fact that now like people who, enjoy those albums, like it's going to be like, now it's going to be so hard to enjoy the shit knowing that that's the guy who's playing it. And like, and then there are the people who already like have some sort of like hate boner for Manowar are going to be like, oh yeah, see, these guys are all fucked up,
The Christians with their hate boners.
Yeah, exactly, with their raging Jesus-ly hate boners.
It's Satan. It was all
damn devil's music.
Satan. So, what's on the flip side of that coin? What's so fucked up? I keep seeing all this crazy pedophilia Hollywood shit, and I'm insanely disturbing. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy, but when you start seeing things over and over, you're just like, man, this is really starting to bother me.
Right.
But there are people that just get away, literally, with murder, with fucking rape, with pedophilia. I mean, it is beyond disturbing. And I mean, I think you will, and not to say you shouldn't. I mean, we will shame and crucify, somebody for this sort of behavior, rightfully so.
Absolutely.
But I also think sometimes when it's a celebrity, people are like, but I mean,
Yeah, there's always that person who like has to tack on some kind of caveat. No. There's no caveat that any amount of celebrity allows for in that case. It's like, did they do we know? Can we confirm that they did this fucked up thing? We know that that's a thing they did. Okay, yes. Then there's no fucking room for like, oh well, but think about their circumstances and like what. I'm like, dude, no, fuck no. You wouldn't excuse it if it was your creepy ass neighbor looking at those kind of magazines or whatever. You shouldn't excuse it just because the guy's on TV also or whatever.
Like the TV show. And it's a tricky thing because are you going to eliminate all these movies and albums? Like, so that's kind of crazy, to do that. But it's certainly, I mean, that's the whole thing at the end of the day. Like, people should have the right to choose, I think.
Exactly. And it is complicated. The whole thing of like the art and the artist. Like when the artist creates something that really resonates with you for some some reason, but then the artist themselves does something that like negatively, that's negatively impacts you, the world, whatever, like that just completely just tarnishes any idea you had of them as a good person. And it's like, okay, yeah, whether or not you choose to still engage with the art, that's up to the individual's, choice if they're still comfortable doing so. For me, it's hard though, because it's like, it's not like, oh, I found out Carl Logan is, a fucking, into child pornography, is a fucking pedophile. But like Manowar's Gods of War is one of my fucking favorite albums ever. And it's like, it's so hard to be like I want to listen to it and I want to enjoy it because I still like all of the other performances on it, but it makes it really hard. Like, even if you still want to enjoy the art, it just makes it really hard to not think about that the whole time.
It's like, I feel like now, if I had a great Academy Award winning actor, a comedian, masterful impersonation, so talented, like Kevin Spacey with that whole thing. Those are all still great movies, but I don't feel like I could sit there and watch a Kevin Spacey movie now without kind of thinking at least like, yeah. But I mean, the thing about him was funny.
I feel like it's still like, oh, that was a good movie, but you're still gonna it's still gonna always be a little bit tainted by like the person who's in it.
Well, what's so weird about that too, and I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but my understanding is that some shit came to light, and then I kind of think these people, these celebrities, just are so used to getting whatever they want that he was just like, oh yeah, I like tried to rape a 14-year-old boy 20 years ago, and it's like I'm gay by the way, and it's like,
for the next podcast.
Well, here's the thing, it's like, dude, okay, if you're gay, like nobody cares about that, but hey, back up, fella. You can't just like, oh yeah, I took advantage of some like underage kid. That's the
exactly. It's like those are
the whole
two very
thing, man. There are
different things. It's like
there are consenting adults and there are minors.
Celebrity, you can be a whatever celebrity, but like that has very much nothing to do with like being a fucking sex offender. It's like exactly. Like people will conflate that or whatever, but it's like no, like you can't just be like, oh no, yeah, I did it, but it's okay because it turns out I was like exploring or discovering myself and I'm this. It's like no, you still fucked up. That's still your celebrity or whatever you are identify as now does not excuse what you did back then. That's no less of a problem back then.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing is, I mean, there are certain laws in place for a reason, and that being a very substantial one.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Speaking of identity, I'd like to talk about Zoë if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm just gonna like leave this to you and like why don't you just kind of throw this out there and talk about it for a minute if that works.
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting one. It's kind of a tricky place to start. So like it's kind of tricky just finding a place to start with that because it's like shit, that's like my whole life, and then like it's your dramatic change. But I guess the best way to get into it is, so I was introduced obviously here on the podcast as Zoë, but that's not my birth name, not my my birth given name. So my name was Michael. I was born and named Michael, born a male child raised as my parents' son. But in the past, it was March 5th of this year specifically that I came out to everybody. It's been, a transition and a process that's been going on for much, much, much longer behind, closed doors and with like very close and trusted individual friends and, like my wife and things like that. But basically went through or have been identifying as, I haven't done any like physical, like actual physical bodily changes or anything like that, but identify like emotionally, physically, whatever, or like emotionally, whatever you want to call it, gender wise. I identify as non-binary specifically, but more specifically, I guess, than that, because that's a fairly broad term. I prefer female pronouns, so, she, her, hers, whatever, and prefer to go by Zoë rather than go by Michael. So it's something that's been, I think the process of wanting to be more feminine and wanting to be more, identifying more with the female, like gender, like kind of the way society genders like female things, like wanting to identify more with that has always been present in my life to some degree. Like I can definitely think back to it being present in my like childhood, in my teenage years, things like that. But, really just opening up and just telling, my partner was the first one I told. And that was back before she and I were even dating, let alone married. Was the first one I told just because I felt like I could really trust her. That,
so you were friends before you started dating?
Yeah, we were friends. We were friends before we started dating. And we, she was one of the first people, or she was the first person I told that, like, yeah, I want to go by Zoe, and I would prefer, like, female pronouns and such. And, she was super supportive of that. And that was one of the big reasons, like, one of the many reasons, of course, I love her for a wide array of reasons. But that was one of the big reasons why I found, our relationship went so well, because it was already built on this openness and supportiveness of something that, it's very different. It's something that's becoming much more accepted in society. It's something that people are much more open about now than, even just, a few years ago. But it's still new. It's still something really different that people aren't, at the very least, it's new to a lot of people, to like maybe the mainstream world and their understanding of, gender and things like that. But the fact that, like, she had, this person in her life that was already, different in many ways, my already being, disabled, being blind, dealing with some other, issues and things like that. And then, like, having this gender identity, adjustment and things like that. And, like, her reaction to that was, hey, I totally support you and encourage you to keep pursuing this. That was a really good foundation for a relationship, of knowing of that, like, kind of unconditional support. But yeah, she was the first person I told, and, very, very gradually told few other people that I felt very comfortable telling, and then, like, very slowly just increased that number of people till finally March 5th of this year, I finally just came out and told everyone, like, look, yeah, I go by Zoe now, and I identify as, with female pronouns, and here's my awesome Sailor Moon cosplay.
What's interesting to me is I don't remember what it was about, but you had messaged me about something at some point, I think, and I saw, because here and there I get messages, and it's from someone I'm sure I've met or whatever, or knows me, and I'm like, but I'm not replacing it, and I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? Or, oh, yeah, sure, thanks, or yeah, let's touch base. Mm-hmm. And I just saw Zoe, and I don't remember what the message was, I don't remember the context or anything, and it didn't hit me. And then a little bit later, we were popped up something else, and I was just like, how have you been, or something. You're like, oh, well, it's been an adjustment and this and that since I changed to Zoe. And then it hit me, and I was like, what? Oh my god. Because I did not realize no, I totally get it. It was like, it was just kind of flying under the radar. They were just talking, and then suddenly it's like, oh shit, wait, that's different now. and for me, it was just like, it was one more like when I introduced you, it was just like so eclectic, like, so you've ventured into so many things and done so much stuff, and especially with I think it's just that in of itself is interesting. It's more interesting even because you're blind, and it's just like, wow, I mean, it's done so much. And forgive me when I say like this guy, and I mean I don't mean that obviously. No, it's fine. Like, a lot of people use dude, of course, like neutral terms. That doesn't bother me. Yeah, I mean, I fucking call everyone dude anyway. So man, I'm the exact same way. I'm always calling I'll call my wife dude. I'll call my wife bro. I'll be like, hey, what's up, bro? That's what we do. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to really being nitpicky about identity and demanding that someone call you this or that, I mean, if someone's being directly derogatory or hateful, that's a problem. Exactly. You should not be a fucking asshole. It's not that hard. It's like, don't be a dick. Don't be a nice person. If you ask me, hey, like, this is what I identify, and you tell me I want to go by Zoe, okay, that's fine with me. Like, exactly. It has not changed anything about our friendship. There's exactly. It's like, we're still the same people. We're still the same assholes that we were like a few minutes before. We still exactly. Yeah, I don't give a shit about your identity. I think you're wrong about not liking Megadeth. Yeah, that's the worst thing about me, really, when you get down to it. Like, that's, if you have a problem with anything, that's the fucking problem right there. As someone that likes Megadeth, let me fucking know, goddammit. Right, exactly. Now, that's an issue right there. Those are the people we need to keep out right there. I really think it boils down to that. Just treat people kindly. The golden rule, how you want to be treated. Try to do your best, don't. I think, it's funny you mentioned that, like the golden rule. My partner, she turned me on to a thing that she learned growing up, or like that she didn't know growing up, and she always wished she had, because she is on the autism spectrum, and so she always has trouble, with like social stuff, social interactions, things like that. And so she, people would always tell her, you follow the golden rule, treat people the way you'd want to be treated. The problem is, being autistic, there are certain things she prefers and certain things that are more comfortable for her that other people don't
don't like. So when she would treat people the way she wants to be treated, it would come off as rude because not everyone wants to be corrected in the middle of a sentence when they say something wrong or things like that. But she does. So like it didn't work. So then she discovered eventually and turned me on to what is called the platinum rule, which is treat people the way they want to be treated.
Within reason, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Within reason, there's always a degree of,
go fuck yourself. Yeah,
exactly. There's always a degree of any rule, any maxim that can be taken to beyond within reason.
Exactly, and I think if we can just exercise good fundamental kindness and common sense.
Exactly. Just empathy and courtesy toward other people around you.
And I agree with what you were saying. Was making me think of just as a teacher. Now, granted, it's very different when it's not a classroom setting and it's more one-on-one. A classroom has got to be very difficult especially when you have such a mixed bag of people because, but for me, I've always been, what's your method, this and that. And I'm like, well, I have like go-tos and all this, but I'm like, man, everyone is different. Everyone is an individual person. And I look at that and I roll with that person and who they are and how they work and what they want. I don't just throw I fucking hate that when it comes to teaching music.
Oh, yeah.
When people are just like they follow a mythology. To me,
they have like this formula. They have a template.
I personally don't like it when it's a kid and you're like, okay, little Timmy, and now we're gonna learn this. When I see a kid who's like bright and he's really into it, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, dude, and like I'm going for it, man. I'm treating them like
exactly.
Like my
absolutely, and that's such a healthier way to do it because like just these templates that, and I understand in a classroom setting there's so many different people to manage that's why they need these kind of sweeping generalizations of categories and things like that. But when people start working with those categories and they don't see any flexibility within them, they're like, oh well, everyone's either a type A, B, C, or D learner, whatever, they're a type A learning personality, then, they don't realize that, hey, that might be true in a broad sense, but beyond that, every individual person there is a subtype of that personality that is distinct from the person next to them, regardless of how similar they are.
Yeah, and I've said this before, and I think that's a huge, politics aside, whatever, people identify in that realm. I think, individualism is such an awesome thing, and it's a thing that that's what we're supposed to be based on, in my mind. I think,
absolutely.
And so I think anytime you get too far away from that, you have to start looking at it because that's what you don't want. That's what you don't want. You don't want to look at people as classes and races and sexes. I mean, in certain, certain things can be debated in terms of, transgender athlete or something like that.
Absolutely. Or like, this class, how are they affected by this tax thing or this race, how are they affected by this policy? There are things like that where like that's the actual relevant topic being discussed.
Correct.
But it's like on a core fundamental level, those are categories that people fit into, but they are still very much people, like they're still distinct individuals.
Like Geddy Lee. One of a kind.
Geddy Lee with that distinctive goat voice. Exactly.
Dave Mustaine, Geddy Lee, short Geddy Lee.
Yep.
All the different. How tall is Geddy Lee? I'm curious. Do you know Geddy Lee? Do you know his shoe size?
Nah, I'm not. Nah, he's a dude. I don't give a fuck.
This is my new thing that I'm gonna rag on you for. Well, okay, so now that you just said that too, that's interesting also because you identify as. Oh, I have a question before I go. So Zoe, is there a significance in that name, that particular name, why you chose that name?
That's actually a good question. I've always loved the name. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I've always just absolutely adored the name Zoe. And I tried to trace it back. I tried to think about are there significant Zoes in my life that maybe influenced it? And I couldn't think of a single Zoe that I really liked and really knew. Not that I disliked any Zoes, but I didn't really know any. I wasn't really attached to any, And then I thought back. The only Zoe I've ever known was not even a person I knew. It was a character. She was a little fairy in the Spyro the Dragon video games that I played when I was a little kid. Her name was Zoe, and whenever you got to a point in the game where you were safe, where you got to a checkpoint where if you died, she would bring you back to that, or if you fell off the ledge, she'd carry you back up or whatever.
Oh, that makes sense.
Her name was Zoe, and I always loved that Zoe because when I was little and I was playing those games, I'm like, oh yeah, I found a Zoe. Now I'm safe. I'm here where I want to be, and I'm protected. I'm healed up, and I'm ready to go on to the next adventure. That is the only Zoe I have any strong connection to, and after just thinking about it for so long, that was it. That was the Zoe.
It actually makes sense on a subconscious level to me.
It really does. Like, it sounds odd, but like, yeah, no, I mean, like, when you think about it, like, that's very, a child's mind is very, young, very like they attach, very strongly to things. And when you're, I put a lot of value in video games. I play them a lot. I play professionally now. And, being, growing up with that and being like, oh, that Zoe is always a symbol of safety and, protection and comfort and somewhere that you can always know you're going to safely return to. Yeah, that's very powerful.
Interesting. And then a minute ago when you said, so you said non-binary, or I guess more toward a female. Yeah,
I identify as non-binary, but I definitely lean more towards feminine or female.
And I actually have some thoughts on that too, but there's not with you, but just in general. And there's, but you're not actually gay in terms of you like females. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like my gender identity, like, and that does confuse people because like like when I was telling my parents about it, actually I was a total bitch and couldn't tell my parents. I let my sister do it for me because I'm a bitch. That I was gonna be Zoe from now on. But
that was the first moment of like you got to really be a true bitch.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, hey, I can finally be a fucking bitch. And it's okay now because I'm a lady. But no, it was like, it was like, regarding that though, like that was one of their biggest confusions. Like, well, what's going on with like, with marriage and with your spouse, with Kelsey, and like, are you still with her? Like, what's going to happen with that and all that? And I had to explain to him, and it's very confusing because like gender and sexuality are, they sound similar but are very different. So it's like, no, my gender has changed, but my sexuality has not changed. Whether you want to say like, and now like people ask, well, does that mean you're heterosexual or homosexual? Because if you don't identify as male or female, or you lean more towards females, but you're attracted to females, what would you call yourself? And I would say like, I would just say I'm attracted to women. I wouldn't be able to say like, oh, that's heterosexual or homosexual or pansexual or whatever the, F kind of sexual there is, because there's so freaking many now that I can't keep up with them all. But like, there's not really a good term for it when you're non-binary, because you don't really fit on the, in that binary between heterosexual and homosexual. And so for me, when people ask, like, if someone asks, what is your sexuality? I'd say, well, I'm attracted to women and I'm kinky as hell. Like that's basically all I got.
I think, you sort of are, personifying, that's not the right word. You're doing like, you're the real version of the joke that guys make. Like, oh, I'm just a man living in a lesbian's body.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? Like,
I'm a lesbian.
For any straight male, exactly. we're all like, oh, if I was a woman, I would just, I'd be like the dirtiest fucking lesbian ever. Exactly. And I just fuck myself and every chick. And somehow it's like, I don't know, like that's kind of like, I kind of get that in the sense that like, I feel like if you're a woman, like it's more of, it's not an aggressive male, caveman thing. It's too feminist. It's this more feminine thing. And it's like, let's explore each other's bodies. So in that sense, like it kind of makes sense to me, like, and as a guy, I'm not gonna deny. I mean, it's just like that's what like turns on a dude like myself. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, this two chicks gonna do dirty shit to each other.
Exactly. Just like that's what you want to do. That's what you're into. And it's like yeah, but like it's definitely different. It's like, which is not to say that you aren't still up to some some crazy freaky dirty shit. But it's like it's just there. But there's definitely a different atmosphere about it, and definitely I think there's a different comfort level with like or maybe if not a comfort level, at least like just a different perspective with a female partner, with someone who identifies as female, because there definitely is like this kind of different perspective of the way you both come at it, the way you both view gender and your place in the world, and thus like the way you view and treat each other when you're very much at your most vulnerable.
I wonder if sex is that way too. I mean, I wouldn't, in terms of just the way you're approaching things sexually, because obviously women and men, I mean, we get this notion of, porn in our head, which there is bleed over in a lot of people. I think more, I would say, as, more and more. But I think the traditional sort of men are the more visual, the more like, barbarian, just gotta get off. Exactly. And then we want to go to sleep. But the women, it's a very, it's a very an emotional based experience. So as someone like identifying that way, do you see sex like in that way, kind of?
That's kind of interesting. That's a tough one for me, because like yes and no. Like I do, like I guess the best answer for that is like yes and no, because like I definitely do. I feel like it can be like a very I feel like it can be just this really intimate bonding kind of like almost like spiritual experience of connecting with each other. And there are definitely moments like that, and there are times like that, but like there is still very much the like just, you know, rabid horniness that is associated so often with dudes. Like it's definitely still like very intimate. It's definitely still very like, oh, I'm not just gonna like, you know, just 3 thrusts and then go to sleep, you know. It's definitely more than that. But there's definitely like, you know, some people might say like, oh, so it's like super gentle and like loving, and you're like affirming each other and whispering positive things to each other constantly. I'm like, oh no, there are still whips and chains involved, and it's still weird. Like, well, it's still weird. But
if you were on a desert island with Dave Mustaine, would you want to cuddle, or would you just want to like just go for it and then take a nap?
I mean, like, how long am I going to be on the island? Like that matters. Like it's
you're right. That's
leaving soon.
Valid, because you got to plan for the long term.
Exactly, right. You have to plan for the long run. Like if it's going to be a long thing, then like, yeah, no, you want to cuddle. You want to get to know each other.
Out and cuddle
like
with
a long-term thing. Like you want to know if like Dave wants to be Little Spoon or Big Spoon. Like you know, you need to know these things. But like no, I mean, it's like
to me in French, Dave.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Sing to me, sing it to le monde. But it's like, you know, if like
I'm totally not horny anymore. God damn it.
Right, it's like, God damn it, Dave, there, it just shriveled up inside me. But it's like, no, if like the boat is on the horizon, it's coming to rescue you guys, and you're like, no, dude, let's just fucking get it over.
Let's have a fucking let's take a risk.
That's the only way I can get off anymore.
I would ask him for Christina Scabbia's number or whatever her name is.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That'd be the right approach. That's how you spend your time on the island. You make connections.
Yeah,
it's networking. It's really the smart thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, even if there is no one, you pick a fucking volleyball. It's human nature. You know?
Exactly. But yeah, no, it is really interesting though, because yeah, people, you know, I've thought about it too. It's like, you know, identifying as female, like, does that really change like the sexual dynamic? And like, there's a part of it, it's like yes and no, because at the same time, yes, I do, you know, I do identify as female openly now, but I also think, like I was saying, you know, before, going all the way back, you know, as long as I can remember, there have always been signs that I just didn't realize were signs until later of like my generally leaning more toward the feminine and being a little out of the binary of like the gender norm. So I think that was always there for me. So I don't think so much that like openly identifying as female changed anything for me, but I definitely think me being the me that I am has definitely influenced how I view like physical intimacy.
I like that as a lyric, the me that I am. That sounds cool.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty good.
So the now I forgot my thought. Dave Mustaine. Continue.
God.
Shit. Victor, say something. I have nothing. I'm over here stewing because I forgot my fucking next question.
I was going to say, take it back to earlier, 3 pumps. I'm like, man, it's a marathon, right?
Yeah. I know, right? It's like, dude, like you got to pause for a little break there. 1, 2, a little nap, some orange juice, get back into it, give it a good third.
There you go.
That's the 2 best minutes of her weekend right there.
Oh, I think I know what I was.
That's optimistic. 2 minutes. That's fucking optimistic.
Oh, yeah.
2 minutes, fucking liar. Yeah.
Right?
2 minutes of that and then like 45 minutes of cuddle.
It's like 2 minutes of that and like an hour of crying.
That's more accurate. Yeah. So I was going to ask, are you in where's this is there a desire or like to transition like biologically, like, or like to become transgender, or just an identity sort of approach?
It's definitely that's a good question. That's something like I was talking about with my family as well. Is like, you know, are you planning to do like a physical sex change? You know, like, is it going to be a change of sex or is it just a change of gender? And that's an important distinction because, you know, people often conflate the two and don't realize that, you know, sex is the biological, you know, the biology, gender is like the societal, you know, construct. And yeah, for me, it's definitely a gender thing, not a sex thing. Like I'm comfortable in the body that like I have. Like, I mean, I wouldn't mind like losing some weight and shit, you know, that'd be great. But like, you know, I'm comfortable as far as like the equipment I have. I'm pretty much good with that. Like, I don't have a desire to like change sex, but like, yeah, definitely gender changed. But yeah, there's no real impetus to change sex. I'm pretty comfortable with like the form that I have taken.
Gotcha. Another thing I was going to say that I was thinking about this too, like just one thing I like about you is that, you know, here you are coming out like and saying, hey, this is like, I'm identifying as this. I've had these feelings for a long time. And like, you know, it is a much more diverse environment now and a lot more acceptance towards that, obviously, but it's still taboo to a lot of people. It's still I think it's a lot of it is just not understanding it. I think it's just
lack of familiarity.
And I think that should be understood by transgender by everybody.
Absolutely.
We're all
absolutely.
We don't all understand. Yeah. So talk about it. But
that's super important. I totally agree with you. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I just I'll chime in there. I totally agree. Like, it's new and there has to be time taken for understanding.
Sure. And I think and that's all that you can do on both sides. But I think one thing I was going to say about you is I think it's so cool, and I think there are a lot of people like this, and I think sometimes it gets dismissed, and there's this notion that, like, you know, it's this, everyone's so fucking radical and demanding acceptance and all this.
Exactly.
Shit. Dude, like, there's so many people that I know that are gay, or you know, I don't know as many transgender people, but for instance, I mean, Gunzenhausen clan, you're familiar with that? I think I sent you that stuff. I think, right?
Yeah, sort of I think so. I think you did.
And you know, it's like there are some things that are just naughty words that I don't really want to say it on. You know, I probably shouldn't say the word, but the kind of the joke within that, like, this sort of the whole thing is a spoof, and it's characters, and it's making fun of stuff. It's cool music, in my opinion, but the characters, it's about these Germans who come to America, and they're very chauvinistic, and they're really just stupid, you know, and they're sexist, and they're just pigs, you know. Exactly. So a lot of the lyrics and the fake, you know, interviews or whatever sort of you know, play to that. And I think it's like you can look at that two ways, and you can get all fucking offended about it, or you can be like, it's a free country, I don't agree with this, but hey, it's their right, I don't have to listen to it. Or you can go, that's fucking hilarious. And to me, I've had like gay friends that fucking think it is hysterical that we're doing these obvious, absurd sort of, you know, because you know everything, just the sort of things they say. And I think someone like you is a perfect example that I think you could have a wonderful laugh at something like that and not be offended by it, and not take it so fucking personally, because it's
exactly. I just think it's unhealthy how personally people can take things sometimes, because like and I'll caveat that by saying, like, you know, yeah, there are absolutely legitimate things to be offended by out there, and there are people who do say, think, and believe and act on some, you know, really fucked up things out there. Those are totally justifiable things to be offended by. But the counterpoint to that is there are also so many things that are not directed as personal attacks. They're not a personal attack, whether it's a joke, whether it's and you know, whether it's a joke, whether it's unintentional ignorance, like someone maybe, like, you know, for me, when people, you know, first were getting used to my new name, people might still say Michael, or they might still, you know, use certain pronouns or whatever, and they'll correct themselves. But I'm not going to jump down their throat and be like, oh, they're out to get me, they're trying to, like, you know, repress my identity. I'm like, no, they've known me for fucking 29 years as Michael. It's going to take more than a month or two for them to know me as Zoe. You know, that's just different. And the same thing is true, though, like with regard to humor and things like that, though, is that, like, the thing is with jokes is, like, yes, there are jokes that cross lines that maybe, like, whether they should or shouldn't be made, or there's a time and a place for everything, whatever. But, like, there's, you know, I think there's an important thing to, like, for people to, like, look at not just what is being said, but what is the reaction to it and why is it being said. So, like, you take a guy who's making, like, some terrible joke, you know, maybe he's being super chauvinistic or whatever, and you're like, okay, I can be offended by the joke, but let me also look at, like, why is he saying this? Is he saying this because he genuinely believes that that is true? Or is he stating it as a joke because he knows it's not true, and the very idea of it is laughable, and just the absurdity of there could be someone who thinks like this, and I'm making a joke as if I'm someone like that because this is the kind of bullshit they think or would do or whatever. Like, that's not offensive. That's satire. That's, you know, that's
exactly,
like, you're playing up something to an extreme on purpose to make a point. And, like, you're trying to get a reaction out of people, because the real problem with a joke like that is when people aren't laughing. The problem is when people hear that and they're like, oh, yep, that's true.
Well, and if that's the universal reaction, then that's when you go, wow, okay. But I think
exactly. But if people hear, like, your sexist joke and they're like, oh, that's true, that's a thing, and you're like, wow, okay, those people are fucked up. But if they hear your sexist joke and they're laughing, they're, you know, and maybe there are exceptions to every rule, but if they're laughing at the joke, at, you know, your you know, whatever joke, if they're laughing at it, they're acknowledging that it's funny. It doesn't exist in the same reality that we occupy.
Well, and I also think just in a joking context, and maybe sometimes not. We're all human. People make mistakes. You say stupid things. You say mean things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And there's all these there's terrible slurs, and whether it's race, sex, or anything based, and they're there, and But I think it's very hypocritical to act like you've never said anything offensive and done anything this and that.
Exactly.
Fucking bullshit, man. Just like it's about whips and chains when it comes to fucking sex, man.
Exactly.
It's the same kind of thing. Someone's going to come out there and preach their, Christian values or whatever they might be. I'm not picking on Christians per se, but like, and then you're up and you're doing the nastiest fucked up shit and the most
exactly. And it's like, dude, if you want to do either of those two things, it's fine. But if you're going to judge people for doing one, don't go do that thing. If you want to be super conservative, religious, morally, whatever, that's fine. I don't agree with it, but that's fine. If you want to go like have a freaky three-way and just fucking get pegged or whatever, I'll be like, okay, cool, have fun, do it. But like if you're gonna do both of those at the same time and preach that one of those two things is wrong while enjoying it in secret, then that's a fucking problem. And the same is true for like people are like, oh well, you in 1985, you were in a movie where the script caused you to say a word that is now known to be offensive to more people than it was at the time. You're hashtag canceled. It's like, okay, have you never said anything you regretted in the past ever? Like, there has to be some degree of empathy for other people's humanity there, where they're like, hey, no deliberate malice was meant. If there was, that's different. But if no deliberate harm was meant, if a genuine mistake was made, or just times have changed and something that was acceptable at a time isn't anymore, then it's just like, you have to understand that the times go on, and that if a person's genuinely not trying to hurt people, is genuinely trying to either be just a good person or improve if they did have a negative mindset, then like you can't just cut that off and be like, oh nope, you had your one chance and you blew it before you knew it.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like there are the true taboos, and that's not the right word. The true crimes, the things we talked about earlier, the really heinous,
the fucked up shit that's never going to be okay.
That's never ever should be okay under any fucking circumstance.
Like, and sometimes universally agree on. Hopefully.
And sometimes that shit's pardoned and slid under the fucking carpet like no big deal, depending who you are and who and all this. And meanwhile, some fucking poor bastard is crucified and loses his job for saying the wrong thing to some cancel culture Nazi. It's fucked up.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because it's just like, look, like, this guy is getting away with having sex with an underage person because he has money. You know what? This person used the wrong pronoun to identify someone online. You know what? Should they do better in the future? Absolutely. If it genuinely hurt someone's feelings, sure, say, I'm sorry, it was an accident, I didn't mean to. Move forward, try to be better. But like canceling that person's career while someone else exists who's doing physical harm to other people, it feels so counterproductive. I feel like it's not the world that we actually are shooting for. I feel like some people have just gotten really off track with that.
I agree totally. Oh, and it's like when you coming on here, it really comes back to the individual, because you know what? I can go like, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't refer to you by this pronoun. My bad. I got to get used to it. And oh, no problem. And and you say whatever. Either way, and we choose to not get offended by it because we know we're friends and we know the context.
We know that everything is well meant. No one's
we can joke around, right? No one's out to get you. We're not trying to belittle each other. But you could very easily come on here as some high and mighty. How dare you? I identify that you're
my humanity.
Skunk is an animal. And all this
son of a bitch. Hashtag skunk is canceled. It's
right, Skunk is canceled. And on the flip side, I could be some fire brimstone guy going, well, this is God's doesn't want that. It's
exactly. It's like, well, you're going to burn in hell anyway, so you cancel me all you want, you filthy whatever.
At the end of the day, both parties should fuck right off because we're human beings and we're fucking flawed,
Exactly. We are flawed people trying to do the best we can. We're going to fuck up. The best we can do is try and do better by ourselves and by each other, and try to do the right thing to the people around us. That's like the best any of us can do. And I think it's really, it's unreasonable to expect more from anyone on either side than to just like try and be a good person to the people around you. And if you fuck up, just try and do better.
Amen, sister. Boom. Got it.
Hell yeah. There you go.
Can't cancel me now, motherfucker.
Yeah, bitch. Canceled is canceled.
Oh, that motherfucker just canceled his cancel. Oh, you're cool again. You're cool. Fucking this shit changes so much too. It's like, what are you gonna be mad about today, you fucking pussy little activist?
Right? Like, damn it, like I can't keep up with this shit. People are telling me like, oh well, you can't use this term anymore for like say like, oh, don't abbreviate non-binary as NB anymore because NB apparently now is referred to for non-black and it's a sign of white supremacy. And I'm like,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, that's fucking news to me because I went to sleep yesterday and it was non-binary. Who had a fucking meeting while I was asleep?
Right. I'm walking the streets like, oh, I'm in B, motherfucker. Kill him, you know.
Yeah.
Wait, kill him.
I didn't fucking know. Like, I wasn't around for this fucking like meeting of changing the fucking acronym for non-binary while I was, you know, not like what the fuck? I don't know. Like, it's just so hard to keep up with. And like, I genuinely like. I do believe, and I want to believe that it comes from a good place at its core. I think people want to make a place where people feel safe and comfortable and where people don't feel insulted and people are mindful of other people's things. And that's great. That is genuinely, it's a good goal. It's a good idea to achieve. But two things are true. One, you're never going to stop everyone from being offensive because there are always going to be dicks out there. And two, not everyone who messes up is trying to be offensive. So just like this intense like aggressiveness of like, hey, you made one mistake, you are absolutely social media fucked now. It's like, no, that's like, it's just like you have to give people the benefit of the doubt that you would want them to give you. Give them a chance to be like, to tell them like, hey, I'm trying to avoid that word for me as an individual, or hey, that bothers me personally. Is there any way we can like avoid that when I'm around? And be like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, cool. I didn't know. It's fine. That's all good. But like when people just approach it as, oh, hey, this is a blanket truth that you should always do around everybody. And if you don't, then you're wrong. Except for tomorrow, when if you say the same word, it changed last night and now you're wrong again. It's like, no, that's not creating a safe space
it's like
for people to be considered as equal and have everyone considered as like equally valid. That's just policing everybo's words.
That sounds exhausting.
It's like when you were finger tapping nonstop in the 2000s. I didn't call you out on it and be like, hey man, that's so 1980s right there.
Yeah, it's like you're just fucking. What are you gonna just go play for Poison or something?
You're so fucking insulting to me right now.
Right, exactly. Like, why would you do that? Because it's just like it's a thing I'm doing and it doesn't affect you. Like. It's just like I think people infer because there has been so much ill will in the past and because there is still so much about so many things. I think people have their defenses up really high, and I totally empathize with that. But I think sometimes because of that, those defenses, it's kind of like my camera on my front door. The motion sensor sometimes gets set off because someone's coming up to the door. Sometimes it gets set off because the wind chimes are going off. I think sometimes because the sensor is set really high. And I think that's kind of what happens to people. They detect harm where there is harm, but because they get so used to detecting harm where it is, their body starts being on edge. Their brain chemistry it's secreting more adrenaline. It's looking for a threat because that's what they're expecting, and that's what their background has led them to believe and like to look for. And so when there is something that isn't a threat, but the brain could see it as one, it gets so much more blown out of proportion because that's what they're used to having to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy and a great way of putting it. Vic, I'm sorry, were you saying something there a minute ago?
No, I was just going to say it sounds exhausting, and I was also going to say for NB, I would have thought that would have been New Braunfels or something. So,
yeah, for years we just go, yeah, from New Braunfels, right? No, man,
no, you fucking racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
Racist. And it's a German town of all things. Fucking, of course it is.
What? So why aren't you on Facebook anymore? Oh, I thought this guy was from New Braunfels. I don't know what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
Fucking motion detector went off.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. I had no idea. God damn it, that's funny.
Yeah, no, I think you really nailed it there, and like you said, I mean, I think for any decent person, like you're going, of course, like, I mean, with all the things that are going on right now, it's like, of course, Black Lives Matter. Of course, we need to look at police reform and get these garbage cops out of the fucking police force,
Absolutely. But we like, there are changes that need to happen on a deep level to fix problems that are absolutely real.
Right. But not every single member of society should pay a price for every little unintentional slip up, or because we're, like you said, we haven't gotten the latest memo on political.
Exactly. Huh? We aren't all up to date on the firmware for what's the right thing to say or vocalize or whatever yet, and yeah, the people who have a responsibility to do the right thing, who, people like police, yeah, they are held to a higher standard because they need to be. It would be fucking weird if they weren't held to a higher standard of what's acceptable behavior because of the power they have. But like, yeah, that needs, things need to be fixed about that because obviously there are problems. Shit wouldn't be happening if there weren't fucking problems. but at the same time that doesn't mean at the same time that like everybody is actively out to get you. Like that doesn't mean like the world has become your enemy. It means there are serious threats and serious problems that absolutely need to be addressed. And they need to be addressed with the systems and the people who are causing those problems, specifically the individuals doing it and the systems that whether they perpetuate it or allow it to happen or even encourage or protect it. Yeah, those things need to change. Beyond that, it's not like everybody is all in on it together and they all need to, like everyone needs to be punished or everyone needs to, be reformed somehow. Like it's the individuals and the root and the source of the problem that need to be selectively addressed.
And I understand when the counter argument to the Blue Lives Matter, where the argument is, well, yeah, but that's a career. You chose that. You're not born as a cop. And I think that's a valid statement. But that I also think when you start looking at police as just a bunch of horrible pigs, and you would start demanding anarchy, it's like, well, just like any other human. I mean, if we want to group them as cops or group of people as black and white, which is unfortunate, that it has to be that way. But it's
absolutely. Like it shouldn't.
You know what I mean? It's like you can't ever put a large group of anything in one bucket and go, this is that. It's like you've got to go. Exactly. And for all of it, I really think it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, black, white, a cop, a fucking a landscaper, whatever.
Whatever you are
decent fucking people. Megadeth fan.
People are good. There are problematic people out there,
and the problematic people, they just.
Problematic people, like if they're people who their particular version of toxicity is power related and dominance related, they're going to seek out positions of power. So you might find more of them in enforcement type positions.
Horrible, unfortunate reality. Correct.
Exactly. But it's the people that do that. And if you want to look deeper, there are systems that maybe like societal structures that have influenced them to think a certain way about a certain group of people, or there are systems in place that protect them when they perform behaviors that should not be acceptable. Those need to change too. But in terms of like blanket statements, it just doesn't work. And I don't like really the whole like Blue Lives Matter kind of movement, because it wasn't really about saying that, hey, police have individual lives and they all are important, because it was, and the reason I say that is because it was conceived of directly in response to Black Lives Matter. So it was conceived of as a way to shut down those arguments, and that's why I have a problem with it. But as far as like the actual people, the people in uniform or whatever, are all of them fucking like jackbooted thugs? No, I mean obviously not. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I hate when people start comparing the United States to Nazi Germany. I think it's insane.
Exactly. It's a very different place. Like it's not the same situation. But like and on top of that, people have to remember, like, hey, not all, like, of course, the problematic cops are problematic, just like the problematic landscapers are problematic, I guess. I don't know.
It's a lot of those fuckers, man.
Yeah, a lot of those sneaky
picking fucking locks with chops with their fucking lawnmower parts,
stealing your shoes and shit. But it's like, are there problematic cops? Absolutely. Are there people who are good people who happen? I guess are there people who are good who happen to be cops? Sure. Are there people who are bad who happen to be cops? Sure. What we need to do is address the system that allows those people to remain in a position of power. And also, just not to put too fine a point on it, but there are also, like, not all cops are white either. There are black and brown cops too. Like, people, they kind of talk about them like this, force of like white stormtrooperdom, and you're like, okay, of course there are racists, there are assholes out there, there are power abusers, but they have to remember when they're like, oh, all cops are assholes, whatever the thing is that they say, it's like, and Black Lives Matter. It's like, hey, this black guy whose life you said matters is also one of the people you said is a bastard because he's a cop.
And you know, some white girl yelling at that guy and calling him a racist piece of shit, and you're going like, what? How?
It's like, what is happening here?
What fucking altered universe do we live in right now?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is some weird.
I joined.
I thought absurdist shit when you have like some tiny little suburban white girl yelling at like Hispanic guy, like, "Oh, you're a racist because you're a cop," and it's like, dude, what? No.
The world's crazy. There's billions of people in it. Sure, out there's probably like one crazy ass black cop who what was Dave Chappelle's character? Fucking Clayton Bigsby, who
Bigsby. Yeah.
And it's like. But that is not. I'm sure like most black cops are not just like, yeah, I wanted to become a black cop so I could just go beat the shit out of my own people. Like,
who does that? Who the fuck wants to do that? Like, if there's a person who does that and they pass the psychological screenings, then yeah, there's definitely some reform that needs to happen. But like, yeah, people have to remember, like, there are cops who are in minority groups who are very helpful to minority communities because they are there. They can speak to and interact with those people on a cultural level that can often diffuse situations that might be made worse by someone who doesn't know that, you know, the cultural norms or like how to connect with these same people. Like, if they weren't there being cops of you know, their race, their ethnicity, their religion, whatever, like, that would be a fucking problem. Like, we need that representation. Like, that's fucking important. And like, so yeah, I just don't get it. It's fucking weird. Like, yeah, like there's the one cop out there, it's like that Dave Chappelle character, maybe one, but like I highly fucking doubt it. Or like
not even one, like half, like a Dr.
One guy, or like what was that guy from? If you ever watched what's that show, The Boondocks? There's that that character, Uncle Ruckus. You know, maybe there's one of those out there, but like I fucking highly doubt it.
Oh
yeah, I just feel bad for those people who are standing there going like, man, I mean, how fucked up is that to go? And I mean, I'm like anyone else. I've been like, you know, you meet shitty fucking cops that fuck you over, and you know, I've had guns drawn on me too. Like, I was very fortunate. I'm not dead, you know, but I mean, absolutely. And you can say that's because I'm white, fine, you know. I mean, I was fortunate.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but like the situation was still bad, you know. It's like,
have known white people that have been shot dead, you know, personally. Knew them, and so, you know, I'm definitely not discounting the racial issue in Black Lives Matter at all.
Like, there's absolutely there is racial tension, there are racial issues that are absolutely happening. Like, that's not to discredit that in any way. That's totally a thing.
So weird, this notion that, I mean, that you're sitting there yelling and screaming at people and spitting on them and throwing shit on them and these are the same motherfuckers that are going to answer the call if someone breaks into your house. It's just ludicrous, you know.
Yeah, just like, look, like are you fucking angry because something horrible happened? Absolutely. Should you be angry that something horrible happened? Absolutely. Direct that anger at the people that deserve that anger specifically.
Yeah, I want to
systems that deserve that anger. Like, if something needs to change, then direct all of that. As clearly, these people have a lot of fucking energy. You know, they're passionate. They're very clearly passionate about what they believe. And it's like, that's great and that's awesome, but focus it in on achieving the goal that you want. You know, like achieving the goal of justice for somebody, of equality, of, you know, putting it into like racial profiling and trying to, you know, make police accountable for police brutality. Fucking, those are very reasonable goals to want to achieve. Those are totally legitimate things. But like, directing your anger at an entire job of people, like an entire job class of people, including people of the ethnicities that you are saying are being oppressed by those people, which in some cases they are, like, it doesn't achieve the goal that you want. It just gives the other side more room to be like, oh, you're just fucking crazy anarchist.
I think that's the irony of it. Yeah, I think that's all the real irony.
Not want to listen.
And I think that, you know, I've said this before, and I think that the blowback to that is sort of, you know, and this this is a broad topic where this is one factor in a lot of different things, but I think that that is why, and I don't think I really don't, I present it as a white black thing, and I don't think it is. I think it has, it's, and I don't want to use the word class either, but I think a lot of average people, white, black, whatever, you know, are a lot of those people that are going to go vote for Trump again, I think are going to do it because of the extreme sort of radicalizations on that left side of the aisle, which is exactly what we're talking about. Not to say that, I mean, and I don't want to paint it with that and say that, you know,
like, it scares them, and whether it should or shouldn't, or whether they whether they have cause to be afraid or not, is like not even the debate there. Like, that's not even like what's going, like, whether that's valid or not. But what it is it's something that they see that is motivating them to go the other way.
And that's what is ironic to me, and I see this in both parties, where I feel like the crusaders on, you know, whatever the issues are on both sides, the Bible thumping demographic has always driven me up the fucking wall, and the pandering on the conservative side. But like, it's people that, in my, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but in my mind, I feel like sometimes they shoot themselves in the head, you know, because the other side goes, fuck these crazy motherfuckers, you know, like,
yeah, look, we're the sane ones by comparison.
Linux, I'm like, you fucking cocksuckers, like, what kind of crazy shit is that? And on the flip side, it's like someone running out there beating the shit out of a white person because one, you know, or a handful of people were killed by some scummy fucking cops. Like, those things make no fucking sense. There is zero,
like, they're not related. Like, it's just like an unrelated reaction. It's very, and it doesn't look productive. It doesn't look like if your genuine goal is, you know, this justice, this equality, that's great and that's awesome, but it doesn't come off looking that way if you comport yourself in a certain way. Like, you have to look at how it's going to be viewed by others. And I get people's frustration, because people have made a very valid point. They're like, hey, we tried peaceful protesting. I remember when we would take a knee and everyone was pissy about it. And now that we're actually, everyone's like, oh, don't take a knee, don't do that, don't be peacefully protesting. And then so like, okay, cool, we're not peacefully protesting anymore. Oh, why aren't you guys being peaceful about it? It's like, yeah, no, that sucks. That's frustrating as hell. I get that. But there's still more constructive, even if you are going to be active and disruptive and physically forward about what your presence is, like, and what your thing is, there are still more productive ways to go about it than just like kind of wanton chaos.
The kneeling thing's a good point, and that can be argued either way. I want to go on record and say, though, like, and there's a certain someone I'd like to have on this show that I made a comment on one of their feed once, and they're very vocal about the social issues and the masking thing. We totally agree on that stuff, and a lot Black Lives Matter and all these, and a great, fantastic musician. I won't say his name, but like, I'd love to have him on the show sometime. But anyway, he had a post, and it was about the kneeling thing, Kaepernick, and I made a snide comment about it. And he's like, "Oh, come on now," and I was like, "Yeah, it's like, look." To me, it's like, I just don't like Kaepernick. I don't like I don't like people who kiss their biceps, because I fucking can't stand arrogance. It drives me up the I don't like it. I just don't like douchey, arrogant people. So really, in my mind, it had nothing to do with that. If it was really about social justice, that's a whole nother topic, and I guess it was. I sort of looked at him like, this guy's just wants attention. He's just a douche. But what do I know? So I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to debate. I'm not going to debate.
Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But it definitely, if it didn't start out that way, it definitely evolved into a movement of people kneeling with good intentions, like one way or another.
Right now, it's just such a mess. And it's funny because here we went through this just a few years ago, and all of a sudden, something that became about a social injustice that happened. The same thing, police, murdering an innocent Black person or whatever the case, typically is. And the next thing you know, it's about the national anthem, and you got the president, and you're going, what? Like you were saying, it gets so far away. It's so goddamn far. Now we're focused on riots, or we're focused on whether people are standing for the national anthem. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ! Like, are the people are the oppressed people ever winning? No.
Yeah. This is not working.
Just keep getting fucked. That's what makes me so mad. It's like the movements always seem to get hijacked and lose sight of something.
Absolutely.
It
becomes something totally. It snowballs. It just snowballs into something totally different than what it is, and it's like, and yeah, that's frustrating because it's like, hey, you try it peacefully, it doesn't work. You try it aggressively, they tell you to be peaceful, which didn't work. So it's like, yeah, that's frustrating, but it's like, yeah, somehow they've got to keep like. I don't know, like they have to direct this focus somehow with all this passion, all this energy has to be directed, because when it doesn't, yeah, that's what it turns into. It's like suddenly kneeling, a perfectly non-aggressive, non-invasive gesture, kneeling for the national anthem turns into an awareness for people who are innocent people being killed, turns into an argument about patriotism. And suddenly, standing
and then you have other innocent casualties that are somehow victims of some nonsense that's just like not even it just, where does it even, it just goes, like you said, it snowballs and goes so far away.
It doesn't start where this began, and it doesn't end where they want it to end. It's a tangent completely.
And Rush still
is better than Megadeth. I know it hurts to say. I'm glad you came out and said it.
Be kind. That's the message. Just let him like Rush. Fuck it.
Right? Exactly. If a guy likes Rush, if a guy doesn't know any better, he can't help it, he likes Megadeth. Like, the poor guy, he probably has to wear water wings when he eats soup, so he doesn't drown. He doesn't know any better. Be nice to him.
The cuddle with Dave Mustaine. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. The guy wants to spoon Big Papa Dave. You can't blame him for that. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, people just need to remember everyone is a person, everyone is imperfect, and while there are malicious people out there, as long as like we keep trying to do right by by others and try to be empathetic and considerate to the situations of those around us, that's what's going to move us forward, and genuinely like work and act and vote and think with that in mind of how will this affect not just me but other people. If we can maintain that social awareness on both sides of the aisle, politically speaking, then that's what moves us forward. It's not aggressive aggressive action. It's not extremist religion. It's not, any of those things. Those aren't going to move us forward. Those are just going to stonewall any semblance of progress and just have us at each other's throats when we could be advancing forward by just being a little bit more fucking considerate to the guy next to us.
Words of wisdom by Zoë Espinoza. I mean, what an absolute pleasure it is to talk to you. Like,
this has been so much fucking fun.
You're such an amazing person, like, and so eclectic and so well versed in so many things. And I just think, I mean, that's part of the reason you were one of the first people I thought of when we started up this podcast. I just thought it would be like really interesting to talk to you, to get your perspective on this stuff. And it doesn't surprise me what you said. I mean, as just an intelligent, rational thinking person who is an individual who is just a decent person. Like, how hard is it to be a decent person?
Yeah, like people, it just seems like common decency is like just really weirdly hard for some people to do lately. It's like, hey, if you don't want this done to you, don't do it to that guy.
I just want to be so mad at everybody right now.
Yeah, I just got to be pissed at somebody for something. You got to wake up and like, what is going to be the bug up my ass today? It's like, just Zoe, like, I don't have Zoe.
How dare you make choices in your own life that have nothing to do with me? How dare you? How dare you not consult me and see what I thought about your life choices? It impacts
you so much. Yeah. Like it's obviously.
I'll never be able to sleep again knowing that you've had this change in your life. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I just won't be able to say my prayers like a good little skunk and go to bed at night peacefully.
Oh, that's Zoe. I'm just
seeing you.
I'm just so mad at her for.
Well, guess what? You're fucking canceled, bitch.
Oh, man, I can't wait till I just fuck up and cancel myself.
I know, right?
Anyway, well, Vic, you got anything to add, man? This is
no. Everything's very
really fun,
enlightening, and I'm actually more hopeful than probably a lot of other people because I try to avoid the news and social media. But it's always refreshing to hear somebody's take.
Good for your mental health.
Somebody who's considerate, all that other, just common sense, common decency. That's it, man.
Yeah, common fucking decency. It needs to be a little more fucking common, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, you fucking bastard. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, piece of shit. And go jerk off to some fucking Megadeth, you asshole.
Go listen to your Rush.
I will. I fucking will.
All right, we'll have to do this again. It was a real pleasure, Zoe. Thanks so much.
I'd love to be on anytime y'all want to just totally kill some time together and like just blow up the airwaves with nonsense. I'm totally down.
Say hi to the family for me, and
hell yeah.
We'll talk again soon. Hope to do some music with you.
All right, sounds good. I'm gonna go get me some fucking dinner, man. I'm fucking hungry. All right.
Awesome.
Peace out, bitches.
Thanks.
Yeah.